Yes, I can.
Beautiful. Okay. Well, welcome everybody. My name is Joe Cozens. I am a teacher. I teach in both schools and teaching with the University of Oxford, sessional teacher, looking at transformation and AI specifically. So I work in a school, Clifton High School in Bristol, and I do some consultancy around AI. So I'm going to be showing you a variety of AI tools today. There are lots of AI tools available, and I specifically focus on a little bit of creativity and looking at lesson design. I am going to only focus on Microsoft and Google. The reason for that is Microsoft and Google are quite accessible tools for lots of universities, lots of colleges, because they tend to be the learning management systems that are used. However, that does not shy away from the fact that there are excellent products within ChatGPT for teaching and learning and Claude. But I'm going to focus on these two just for this short period of the presentation today. And I'm going to just briefly mention the benefits of the Microsoft and the Google in terms of their data protection. So using the Microsoft platform with an education license, it provides that data protection for Copilot and the AI tools which sit within Microsoft Teams. And so that means the prompts aren't being sent to OpenAI, and they are held within the tenant of the organization, which is really, really valuable. It means that there is much more that can be done in terms of use cases rather than, for example, using a free version of a product without a university or college license, which doesn't provide that data protection. One thing I would mention before I go any further, please do mic on if you have a question. And also I'll leave a little bit of time towards the end for some questions as well, if you do have any. So the two Microsoft products I'm going to focus on are Copilot and Teams. I'm going to focus on the free part, but I also will mention a little bit to do with the paid model of Copilot, just because it does give a huge host of additional resources and capabilities within the product. So in its simplest form, Copilot, like ChatGPT, and it predominantly uses ChatGPT. It is a user interface for using ChatGPT within the Microsoft ecosystem. Can be used for lesson planning. So just in this little clip, I'm just very simply asking for a lesson plan and the resources to deliver something in a creative way, which sounds very, very simple, and it is very simple, but it can enable, when teaching, to deliver a much more inclusive way of learning, potentially what would be, in this example, a very challenging topic for a potentially first-year undergraduate student to access. So looking at epigenetics, straight away, I've got learning outcomes, and then I've got suggested tasks and materials. So it's given me a hook and something that's not going to be screen-based. It's encouraging me as the deliverer to do something that is not necessarily reliant on screens. So AI doesn't necessarily mean screens. It can mean a lot of different things, but it certainly, when it's planning lessons, can suggest much more practical based delivery of content. So there's a short mini lecture and then a story based group activity, which enables something as difficult as epigenetics as a topic to be delivered in a much more fun and inclusive way, whilst developing additional skills within that teaching and learning resource. And then we have some data which the students can investigate and ask questions about, and then a practical simulation, and then a simple quiz to assess what has been delivered. So that's a very simple use case, probably a use case that we're probably already utilizing for lesson planning. But just adding that word creative already starts to give Copilot, in this instance, a opportunity to do something slightly different. And I think, if you were to ask Copilot without the word creative, it will do something that is quite standard, is quite generic. But if you want something that's different and is going to infuse students I think adding that as a key part of a prompt is going to enable students to engage in a slightly different way. So the next thing I'm just going to showcase is utilizing, again, just a simple Copilot, but to turn something into a bit of a game. And I do this when I'm delivering adult learning as well as student learning. So this is something that's very school focused in this example, but it's just the delivery of teaching the Battle of Hastings. And what I've asked Copilot to do is design a game for the delivery and teaching of the Battle of Hastings. And this is an in-person game where this could be presented either individually to the students, or it could be presented and structured from the teacher, whereby they get to choose the mission of the different individuals within the Battle of Hastings, and they take on that persona, and they make choices in the strategy game that Copilot's designed. So although this is a topic that is obviously very, very young, this could be done with any topic, and giving the agency to the students to make choices in how it's delivered, but also having a bit of fun whilst that they're delivering, and being able to compete potentially with other students in the cohort that they're being taught in. So it's very simple. It didn't take an extended prompt, and yet we've got something completely different in terms of delivery of content to students. The next thing, which many of the platforms can do, is generate images. So in this example, from I also teach A-level biology and university. I've been to university and studied biology. The content around images for evolution are quite limited. They're quite old, not very creative, and yet evolution could be depicted in so many ways. So two very simple prompts here: depict evolution in a creative way. And I have two really, really nice examples of images that can be utilized for discussion. It doesn't mean that there is, perfect factual information in these images, but they're thought-provoking. And the question could be around the evaluation of these images. Do they actually show natural selection? Do they actually show what leads to the evolution of a species? And is one better than the other? And developing that critical thinking whilst utilizing the creativity of, this is just Copilot, okay, creating very, the one on the edge, on the right, is a very high quality image. In addition to that is image editing. So I quite like using infographics, especially when I'm delivering training around AI and digital transformation. And there are a lot of infographics online produced by companies such as Microsoft and Google, but they're not quite what I want to deliver. You can utilize Copilot to re-render those images so that they exactly say what you want in terms of labels, or to reimagine the image. So for example, a lot of the Microsoft images are on a white background. I like delivering things on a black background. Very simple example, but I'm adjusting that so that it suits my delivery. In this little example here, I've taken an image from this website just below, looking at glacial forelands for geography, and this image had no labels. Now, the labels aren't perfect, I'll be honest. I only did this once, but it has added labels to the image to display the glacial foreland succession. And within the Copilot 365 license, I can then customize the image even further. So it works a little bit like Canva in that I have these different buttons down the side, and I can completely manipulate the image, which is really, really powerful, and can really help with the delivery of content, because there are some excellent images out there that don't quite fully paint the picture that you want to, even though the actual image is really useful. So being able to tweak images is really powerful. Now, something that sits within Copilot is Copilot Teach, and this is a product that is continually evolving. So Very simply here, this is within Copilot, and I've clicked Teach just here, and I've opened up the lesson plan generator. So rather than having to do this in the bar just here, I can title, I can focus on higher education, and I can describe a topic, and it could be a much better description than I'm going to give it, and decide on the time limit of the lesson. And I very simply get a lesson plan structure that can be exported into a Word document, or it could be attached to a Teams assignment, which is obviously used a lot for the delivery of learning content. So that's a very simple example. I'm just going to go back here, and I'm now going to click on modifying existing content. So here I can change potentially content that I will be delivering to a much more accessible or broken down set of instructions. So I'm going to utilize Copilot Chat on the right here to make up a description of a lesson. Just skip a little bit through. Okay, so I'm going to do epigenetics again, just because it's a biology topic, but I will do some other topics. And I'm just going to copy and paste the lesson description into the text bar, select the grade level, and I'm going to ask it to do step-by-step teaching of this. And so now it's broken up the content to make it just slightly easier to be delivered. And that again can be turned straight into a Word document. So although I could have done that in here, the actual prompt time is quicker, and I can utilize a resource that I've already got. So I'm just going to go back again and look at some of the other examples. So just here, we can generate a Microsoft form as a quiz with very little effort. And this can be really useful for obviously assessing student outcomes. There's great AFL opportunity. And so very simple again. I haven't given much instruction. I could add some content. It could be a PDF, PowerPoint that I've already utilized for the delivery of content, or I'm about to deliver for content, and it can turn that into a quiz. I've described the number of questions that I want, the quiz duration. Now I've selected 15 minutes there, and I'm just going to change this because I can then turn on practice mode if I don't set a time limit. So what this does is it enables the student to go back and try and improve their score, rather than this just being a full assessment protocol. They can utilize this as a revision resource as well. So it's just finalizing. And here we have a very simple Microsoft form already generated that I can then share with the pupil across any different platform. It could just be email, or it could be through Teams. And then these examples are flashcards, fill in the blanks, and matching. Now, some of these may seem more school focused, but actually, again, I've utilized some of these tools for adult learning. So very simple. I've copy and pasted again the same content from the previous example that I've just used. I've allowed AI to edit the content, and then I can select the difficulty as to which I want this fill in the blanks to be. And then it will generate me a fill in the blanks task for the students to complete. Now I can continue to manipulate this. So I can ask it to edit it, choose different words to take out that can be used as blanks. But we'll run with this one. And then it loads up. I'll just click play here. And then I have a very simple assessment for learning tool, which is still very high level, but is utilizing something that's a bit more fun, and still encouraging students to really analyze the content that they've studied. Okay. Now, Teams is a very, very useful learning management system, and it has in it some non-Copilot functions. So just very simply here, I can generate modules of a unit. So I can just simply describe a topic that is being taught and very quickly get draft module content that can be delivered through Teams so that students have an understanding of where certain topics fit within the curriculum and what content that includes. But also when delivering an assignment through this platform, I can use rubrics, which are really powerful for providing feedback. So this could be a higher education tab and giving the rubric a title. So this is actually part of an AI course that I deliver for students. Very simple description of what the pupils are going to be taught and how I want them to be assessed. And then I can specifically pick out the criteria that I want assessed. And then I get a rubric generated within the Teams ecosystem, which means when I want to then provide feedback, I can simply click on those different parts of the rubric, which will sit here, and give very, very quick feedback to students within that ecosystem. Okay, that's it on Microsoft. Other than, final bit, sorry, is Copilot 365. Now, this is the paid platform, which is much more powerful. So there are a variety of things that Copilot 365 can do. I'm just going to, in this little video, showcase Copilot 365, Word, PowerPoint, and Excel. So just here, rather than me having to do anything in Copilot on its own, I can draft resources straight into a Word document, which speeds up the time of delivery. I can then utilize this lesson plan in PowerPoint. So I'm going to switch now to PowerPoint and create a presentation. And I'm able to then provide the link to the lesson plan that Copilot just generated. And Copilot will then draft me a PowerPoint deck, which I can then edit, tweak, and ask it to improve before finalizing. And then I have a PowerPoint deck straight away, which always will need some refinement. Now, this is made up data, and I've just switched over to Excel. And the power of the Excel Copilot 365 agent is huge. Claude can also work in Excel. They work slightly differently, and there are different benefits to the two models. But this is without a prompt, analyzing the data that's in this little section. So I'm not going to do a huge focus on this because I'm trying to just showcase creativity, but it is really, really powerful for finding insights into student data. So I haven't given it much of a prompt there, and yet it's analyzed this information so that I can find future insights, and we can dive deeper and deeper into that data and produce pivot tables, much more. Okay, now I'm going to get into Google. Now, Google is potentially more creative, and what's accessible is also free. So there are a lot of free resources. They do have limits in terms of how much content you can produce on the free licenses. And obviously, if then you were to pay for a license, you get more accessibility. So again, Google within an education license provides full data protection, which again is really, really important when utilizing these resources for students. And they also have ethical guidelines, which is also really important, especially around image generation and providing student-facing resources. So I'm going to focus a little bit on code with Gemini, just because it's particularly good at it. Claude is also excellent at code. So it can do some of the things that I've just showcased with Copilot, not so much the teach module. But in this little example, I'm turning Gemini, and this is the free tool, into a canvas to be able to test out code. So this is a very silly example. I'm just asking it to make me a game. However, by making this game, it is showcasing code, and being able to potentially produce this code for students to analyze and improve, rather than this being about the product. It's about the code that the tool has written. So we will get then the code base tab and the preview tab. So if this is being delivered in a computer science curriculum, or it could be a completely different area of a student's journey where they need to utilize code, we have this preview mode where the game of Snake has been designed, but at the top we can switch back to the code view. And this is really useful for critical analysis of code and for students to be able to go back and improve from this test bed. Obviously, there are platforms such as GitHub where students can utilize actually full code testing. But it's really nice for them to be able to analyze what an AI is producing. Now, in this example, I'm just actually going to leave the presentation, go to Gemini, and what I've done in this example is click Gemini Dynamic. So you get lots of different options at the bottom of Gemini, and I've, in Gemini Dynamic, asked for it to design an interactive app for testing student knowledge of muscle anatomy of the arms. And here we have a little app. Now this can be shared with students, and it's a slightly different way of delivering material. And it looks very professional, it's very nice, but it's just a slightly different way of engaging students in a slightly more creative way. The images are very good quality. There potentially would be the need for you to check labels, as always, but it also then, so it has a study mode, and I haven't iterated this prompt, so I haven't gone back to Gemini and asked it to improve the app. This is a first go, and then it has a quiz mode where the student can go in and test their knowledge and see if out of the 10 how they've got on, and go back and improve. So go back to study mode and see if they can revisit these anatomical features and go back and quiz themselves again. So that is an entire app just designed based on that prompt. So a very, very simple prompt. In addition to that, so that I showed you in the previous video was Canvas, and that's where you get this code view and preview view. So in this next example, I've suggested design an app for teaching students degree level pharmacy, whereby they test the drug for a specific disease and see the outcome. This should be gamified to make it as fun and interactive whilst also being accurate. Okay, so in this little video, I've shared the app, and you will be able to see, hopefully the video loads. I'll exit again. I'll play it here. Load it up actually. So look. That'll work. 2 seconds. I will refresh my tab. Sorry, everybody. It's the problem with having so many videos in one deck. I think it sometimes Wi-Fi can't handle the volume. Whilst we wait for that, has anybody got any questions so far? Okay, no problem. So I've got about 5 minutes left, so I'll fit all this in, hopefully. There. So you will be able to come back and have a look at these videos yourselves, and just so you can see some prompts that I've put in. It's not working. That's okay. So hopefully it'll load in it and I can come back. But it fundamentally is designed a really simple app for it will give a diagnosis of a student, of a patient, and then the pharmacist student has to choose the correct medicine whilst it moves along, and it will quiz them on it. NotebookLM is part of Gemini, and it's their image generation tool, and it's really, really powerful for image generation. So I've asked for a high resolution infographic for focusing on PPC and SEO in marketing. And what's really nice is I can show the thinking of Nano Banana. So I can actually analyze what it has articulated to produce this infographic, which is really, really powerful. Just to finish up, I'm going to skip to NotebookLM. Now, NotebookLM is a phenomenal tool. It's free to use again. This is the dashboard when you sign in. And to create a new notebook, you simply click Create New, and you can upload a variety of resources. You can even upload a YouTube video. And what that means is you can produce your own YouTube video based on a YouTube video, which is really, really powerful. So just in this little example of teaching hard and soft water, I can create a PowerPoint deck, an infographic, a quiz, flashcards, podcasts. I have here a very nice video of hard and soft water, explaining the process, but also being able to make it specific to the needs of the class and the actual geography of the area. So I focused this on Bristol, where we're based, so that the delivery was just a bit more personal rather than this being a generic video. And the little bit I will touch upon, there are a couple of bits that I have missed out here, but I will share the deck with you so that you have a look, is Google Arts and Culture, which sounds like it is just about arts and culture. There is a lot on there to do with arts and culture, but there are also really, really nice AI tools within that. So you can use this via the web, or you can use it as the app. And if you click Labs, there are a variety of different AI experiments. So this one on the left, all a student would do is take a picture of whether that be text, whether that be a product, and they can learn about it just based on the image they've taken. And this is specific to indigenous languages, and the AI tool can actually translate information and teach people through a slightly different lens, which promotes cultural learning. And then this botanical atlas is really, really impressive, focused around botany, which just teaches something, you know, that's botany. I did a module on it at university. It wasn't the most exciting unit of my course, but actually the delivery through this is really, really cool. And it's giving that slightly different avenue for a student engaging with content. And I'll just leave that up there. If anybody does want to reach out for more support than the slides, please do so on LinkedIn, and I can provide more support. Has anybody got any questions? I'll just stop sharing my screen for a second. All the chat has got a couple of messages in it. I'll just load that up. Yeah.
You've just got one question, Joe, about the slides. That's all at the moment.
Oh yes, yeah. I will. You'll send those out, won't you? With the...
Yes, yep. So we're attach those to the recording email when we circulate that, so everybody will get a copy of them.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, everyone.
If you're happy for me to, I'll stop the recording now.
Yeah.